Alrighty, good afternoon guys, thanks for joining us. So we have David Kerrigan here, who just finished his first book, Man, Dog, Bike via India. So Dave, you've already written the book and you're getting ready to publish it, right? And you're self-publishing, correct?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, and you're ready to hit the button, out to the world.
Hit the button, get the monkey off my back, put it out, deal with the consequences after the fact.
Fair enough. So how does it feel?
It feels unbelievable, I suppose, because I never anticipated writing a book. I didn't set out with mind that I'm going to collect some story and then stitch it all together and put in all the hard yards that I did to produce it. So I'm sort of on the other side of it with a sense of disbelief that both it's finally over and that B, I did it.
Okay. So because you didn't set out to write the book, when was that moment that compelled you? And I know in the book, and we'll dive into this a little bit more for our listeners, but what was that moment that compelled you? I know you said your friend that you were exchanging emails with along your journey.
Yeah.
He had dropped a few subtle hints along the way.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, but I definitely have to credit him as having been the firebug that got the kindling burning, really. He's a journalist and he's a great writer, and we sort of pride ourselves on writing emails to each other, and often we write songs and we review each other's material and stuff like that. So we're sort of artistic partners in crime. And it was his idea that before I set out, he's like, mate, you got to put as much of this down and send it to me as you go along. And I was a bit like, I don't know that I want the job of that.
That's a lot to...
Yeah, it was, but I did sort of set out, and I hadn't really written much ever. A few speeches and things that I'd winged more than anything, with fairly good reviews. But as the trip did unfold, there was, life and every day just unfolds before you, and there's all sorts of things that I thought are worth getting down and perhaps constructing into sometimes modified tales that I did send to him, and then I'd get feedback from him about, this is hilarious, blah, 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 keep it coming. So he was the original sounding board, so I do owe it to him, that otherwise the spark would have never set off. And then, so it started very much in a sort of light-hearted comedic sense, but then certain pretty monumental events unfolded, which I won't dive into through fear of spoiling the book, I guess, that really did justify the fact that there's a story here, and this is actually worth putting the time on and sitting down and writing a lot of that in between detail that I never did write to him in real time as it was unfolding. And there it was.
Okay. And your comment about you making him laugh with some of your comments. When I read the book, I've truly never laughed out loud so many times. It was like Bill Bryson on steroids at sometimes. I was just rolling laughing. And I think readers will really appreciate that, because in the book, I think it takes on so many different meanings, whether someone is soul searching, or whether someone is a travel enthusiast, or if they love writing music, or the creativity component of music. There are so many different aspects of the book that really resonated with me, and I think will resonate with your readers as well. Obviously we don't want you to give too much away in the book, but give us the 30-second elevator pitch, if you will. What is Man, Dog, Bike about?
It's definitely, if I had to put it into one word, it's just about defiance. It's a sense of going against the conformity of life. That I feel like there's this sort of gap between the life that you live, the guy that gets up and brushes his teeth every day and goes to work, and you're sort of always working in aid of this life that's going to be ahead of you, this future. Or there's the other alternative, which is just putting yourself in the situation, even to dispel the Disneyland idea that, just as soon as I achieve this goal, I'll feel this at that point. Or so I just wanted to put myself in an unfamiliar situation, and I just had this sort of distant growing interest in India. I knew that India would deliver that, and it was a bit, again I go back to the word defiance. It was probably certain people at the time. I'm like, I think I'm going to ride a motorbike across India. Like, no, you don't do that. I'm like, yeah, watch. That attitude just puts fuel in the tank.
Absolutely.
So I was kind of prepared to die to prove the fact that nothing bad would happen to me, in a metaphoric sense. So what's it about? It's a pizza with a lot. Another way I've described it often is, in a way, it's like a 120,000 word suicide note. I'm just not planning on killing myself. But I dig very deep into my past and into what shaped me up until that point. Whether people would be tremendously interested in all that is yet to be determined, but I'm very proud of it. I think it gives context to the stories as they unfold. It's not so much about a guy riding a motorbike across India with a dog, but perhaps why I set out on a pretty ambitious / ridiculous trip. So that could be one description. There's probably several others.
Okay. One thing that I think it really resonated with me and it struck a chord with me is because you are so open in your book and so vulnerable at times. You express and share stories and experiences in your life that I think most people wouldn't be comfortable sharing, and I actually think that's admirable, and I think that gets you more in tune with your readers. I think that because there's an empathy component to it to some degree. There really is, and I mean, do you mind touching on that? There are some things that when I read, I was blown away that you shared that in the book, and I admire that.
Well, there have definitely been nights when I've woken up in cold sweats in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, I can't reveal this. It's too personal. Perhaps it's really off.
How many times did you hit the delete button after writing something?
There was so much back and forth. I deleted lots of things, and then 12 months later, I think, no, I'm going to put it back in. But it did take a sort of degree of courage to be able to commit to being that open and that personal. And I don't know, I've read other books myself that I'm not going to quote, but I've always been most intrigued by those that just dare to be that honest. It's the most interesting stuff. What is it that shapes people and why? What positions them for that moment they are then talking about. So yeah, I wonder sometimes if in 5 and 10 years and 50 years, I might regret it. I'd be like, yeah, that was a bit too much. But it is. It's a very true story told with a little bit of a fictional tongue and pen. It's a genre called creative non-fiction. So it's non-fiction, but it's written in a way that sometimes reads as fiction. And I blame that completely on my dad, who's Irish and is the most naturally lyrical storyteller I've ever met. He can tell you a story about trying to choose between baked bean tins in a supermarket aisle. And it's the best story you heard that week. It's about nothing, but it's fabulous. And I think unconsciously I sort of picked that up as a kid. Definitely my older brothers did too. We all sort of talk in metaphors. It was a sort of Karate Kid, wax on, wax off life of selling your point in the wittiest and silliest way in order for it to stick. So yeah.
Well, there's definitely not.
I don't know if I answered your question in the least.
No, absolutely. There's definitely not a lack of wit in your book.
I hope not, and I'm very flattered by you saying that you found it funny. I've hoped that. That's been one of the vulnerabilities I'm probably most nervous about. It's like clearly I'm pasting on my attempts at comedy as thick as I can, but to what degree am I making an omelette of myself is yet to be determined. I had one particular publisher who declined it, who said the problem with your book is it's so funny I can't read it. And I framed that. I'm like, that's I just can't imagine going to a stand-up comedian and saying, how was it? Oh, it's a bit too funny, for God's sakes. So I think that's the best insult I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, that's the best constructive criticism, I suppose. That is an interesting comment. So tell me a little bit about the Indian culture. You comment on this a few times in the book. What was the most fascinating component, especially for people in America, where whether we believe it or not, we're very sheltered. We live under a blanket to some degree. And then you go to countries like India, and it's such a culture shock for most people at first. What was the most fascinating component for you?
That is a hard question to answer, but I think one of the things that just struck me the soonest is Indians just have such time for you. Like in a way that we in the West don't. Everything's kind of scheduled, we're sort of on the clock, you know, this and that and that and this. But Indians will just, they really seem to live in the present a lot more. They live what I observed as far less structured lives. Mm-hmm. So there's not really the 9 to 5 grind of having to be here and having to be there. Sure, they've got their own duties and responsibilities and objectives, but you could just be chatting to a shopkeeper and before you realise that you've been talking to each other for an hour. And he was just totally happy to be there, and so were you, and it was just this lovely little actual cultural exchange. And they're as interested in us as Westerners as we are in them as Easterners. I think they think we're all insane because they see how close to breaking point Westerners are. All us tourists are sort of, yeah, we're just flying around 100 miles an hour. And their thing is shanty, is the word. It's shanty, everything's shanty on, which just means just, you know, ice the engines, mate. You know, the sun's going to come up tomorrow and then it's going to go down again. That's all that matters, really. So, but there are so many things. Bliss. The food is awesome. It's just, I think India is the greatest antidepressant on the planet. And anyone who is bored and just hates their little cubicle, whether it's literally an office cubicle or the sort of metaphor of how you feel in your life, go to India. But don't go with a plan. Don't go with a plan.
No itinerary.
No itinerary. Just fly to Delhi and go from there. You just walk out of the airport and go, oh, okay, everything I was thinking I was going to do is not going to happen, and 17 things that you didn't anticipate are about to happen in the next 4 minutes.
Well, I got to tell you, Dave, if a trip to India is a prescription for depression, then I'm there. I have depression right now and I need to go see a doctor. So
I think everybody does, and just go there. It's a fireworks show of colour and absurdity in the most sobering kind of a way. It's an absolutely fabulous place. I think when people first get there, within 5 minutes, it's like they either run away and just freak out, or they just decide they're going to come back again. And it was 10 years ago that I was there, but I'm definitely will go back.
It sounds fascinating. It's definitely on my bucket list, that's for sure. So you're on this motorbike, and refresh my memory, what did you call it? The bike?
The Blue Fly.
The Blue Fly. So you're on this Blue Fly, and you have some near misses, and some scary misses with some trucks and some crazy traffic, and so you find this dog along the way.
Yeah.
And apparently in India there are a lot of just stray dogs, like there are stray cats in America in some areas.
They're everywhere.
Okay.
I don't mean to be crass, but the thing that stands out most in India with all the dogs, I mean, this is the sheer number of dogs, and all the dogs have still got their balls. Like they're still like the 80s. It's like, because we just got immune to the fact they all get kind of locked here, and the dogs are all walking around like sopranos. But in India, they're like, yeah, how's it going? You know, I'm like, geez, knackers, settle up.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Getting off track. So how did I meet? Charlie was just a puppy that I saw thousands of litters of puppies like on the highways and all this sort of stuff, and they'd be so close to the edge of the road it would just kill me. I'm like, sometimes I'd stop and like sort of scoop them and they just walk towards me closer to the road, just trying to get them to get off the road, and you'd see ones that have been hit and no one really cleans it up, and it's pretty rough. But this one guy, I was riding along and there was a bus ahead of me, and probably 100 metres ahead, and just did this dramatic swerve, and so I pulled back thinking, there's been an accident or something's going on up here, and the bus just kind of did this and then just barreled off into the distance, and then I realised what it was. It's just this little black puppy who's just running headlong, like playing chicken with the traffic kind of thing. And I just sort of pulled over and scooped him up, and there was no other dogs there, no one else there. It was just the middle of absolutely nowhere. It was coming out of Jaisalmer in Rajasthan into the border of Gujarat, and I just instantly made the decision that I was going to take him.
And you just took him along with you, and he traveled with you for quite some time until you found a woman that more or less adopted.
Yeah, there were several
attempts. She was a foster mom for...
Yeah, there were several attempts trying to sort of adopt him and what to do, and I was going to be going to England after India, And I thought really seriously about, could I bring him? And, I never actually looked into the quarantine process. But I won't talk entirely about what his fate ended up being, but he just became the absolute star of the show.
Okay.
I was just sort of the limo driver for him. Absolute rock star. So many people I couldn't believe just wanted their photo taken with him, like he brings good luck or something. And I don't speak Hindi at all. The only thing I could say is Tora Tora Hindi, which means I don't speak Hindi. And Indians are so friendly and awesome that as soon as you say that little effort at their language, they just break into raptures into English. They're just so grateful that you even could say that I don't speak your language. And my point being is so often, someone would ask me, what is the dog's name? I'll be like, oh, it's Charlie. And then they'll just break into Hindi, like a group of 10 guys passing him around, and it's just all phonetics that I can't understand except the insert word being Charlie. It's Charlie. And it was just incredible. And I think he loved it. He probably was stressed out sometimes.
Well, he probably had a better life than being on the side of the highway.
Yeah.
Playing chicken with large trucks and
Yes.
and motorcycles. So after that, and you meet this lady along the way that's traveling as well, and you go to a couple ashrams. Is that how you
Yeah,
pronounce it? Ashrams
yeah.
with her, and then you go to correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but a Vipassana.
Yeah.
And for our listeners that don't know, Vipassana is a 10-day retreat. Well, it could be any amount of time, I presume.
It can be any amount of time, but it's kind of an intensive meditation course. And you meditate 10 hours a day. There are 2-day courses. The most common one is the 10-day course. I've heard of people that do it for 2 years. 2 years meditating 10 hours a day for 2 years.
And no, you don't
No
make eye contact.
No
you don't
eye
speak,
contact,
you don't
no
make-
speech, no having a watch that beeps on the hour because that's communication with the
No
outside
phones,
world.
no electronics. Completely
Nothing.
disconnected to
Yeah,
the
100%.
real world, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And it's absolutely intense. And I sat there
I
thinking,
can't imagine most Americans could do it. Most people in general. I
Not
can't
many.
even say Americans, just most people in general.
yeah, it's sort of torturous, but it just kind of brings it down to the most sober spiritual reality that I read a book once, and the title of it always stay with me, is Wherever You Go, There You Are. Just that piercing reality. And I've travelled a lot, and I know what I think, I'm going to go to Australia, and then I'm going to feel awesome there. No, all of this stuff, there's just baggage that's checked in automatically, and everything goes with you wherever it is you are. And the Vipassana is about sort of switching off that delusion of the external validations that might make you feel better, and just having to face all that stuff within inside yourself that is just waiting. It's just going, dude, I'm not going anywhere till you unravel all this spaghetti. And I'm not suggesting that I got all mine in alphabetical order and shortest to tallest in the least, but I had some moments where I sort of felt the televisions in my head quieten a lot and switch off, and yeah, it actually works.
It's got to be tough. I think I would have to start small, maybe like one day, or maybe just an hour. I can barely get my mind to settle down just to go to sleep at night. So
Yeah,
it's got to give you, to walk out after 10 days, just such clarity.
there was.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people that can't do it at first.
Oh yeah,
I
the
mean,
first 2-3 days, I was
has to
thinking
be
was this is just the greatest waste of time. I could be doing anything. I could be crocheting, and that would feel more productive than sitting here. I'm sort of semi-writing songs in my head and anxious that I can't play a guitar, obviously, in the situation, to try and get them down before I forget them. And to switch all that off, it was just like sort of wrestling with a gear stick that's stuck, But I'm glad I did it. I'm really glad I did it.
Oh,
They say I should do one a year, just to sort of recalibrate. It's Control Alt Delete on your brain.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, 10 days would be tough, I think, but I can only imagine how beneficial it would be after. So, like I said, I think I'll start with maybe an hour here and work my way up. So,
Yeah.
kudos that you can do it for 10 days. So, after reading the book, it really resonated with me because I I feel like I'm constantly searching for certain things, or I love your word, defiance. You know, the 9 to 5 hamster wheel of life is definitely not for everyone, and myself included. And I question, you know, did you find what you were looking for in the book? Is it a constant growth, just growth of life, right? But
yeah,
your journey when you were done.
There was definitely a sense of enormous pride at having tested myself in such an extreme setting. Not just going to India, but doing the motorbike thing and doing it on my own. The first ever trip I did as an adult without a guardian was with a girlfriend when I was 24 and we went to Western Europe. And she just sort of did all of the thinking, like all of this is almost before the internet. Like you're looking through books to book what train you got to get to meet up with that train to go to that thing. And I just sort of tagged along like a fried egg. And I was so dissatisfied at the end of that trip that I had a guardian, you know, being my girlfriend at the time. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this. I could figure it all out. Even all the bad stuff that happens, I look back at fondly now. So did I find what I was looking for? That doesn't end. I think that doesn't end across the next 10,000 lifetimes. But I did feel a tremendous sense of pride. Probably gave me a lot of perspective, good and bad, as to where it is I come from. It refreshes the notion of home. What's great about home, what's not great about home, what's insane about it, what is a delusion, what's real. So I did definitely go home eventually feeling a sense of refreshed perspective, and that I wouldn't otherwise have if I hadn't have tested myself that intensely. So do I, you know, just kind of coast through life walking on a cloud now? No. That's a bottomless bucket, which is exactly what Vipassana talks about. Gorringe literally talks about the bottomless bucket of dissatisfaction and human suffering. And it's just so true. We fill it with ambition and monetary gains and writing books and learning the guitar and all of that stuff. And it's a constant conflict between a sense of wanting to achieve, which I think is inherent in everyone, and just chilling out and appreciating the present. That if not for the traffic you mentally create, the road is actually perfectly clear. And that's hard to...
easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
absolutely easier said than done.
Talk to me 3 minutes after I brush my teeth every morning. I'm already running around. I'm on my 17th nervous breakdown.
Aren't we all, my friend? So, there are a lot of people that I'm sure would want to do what you did, right? What advice would you have for someone that either A, wants to write a book, or B, wants to travel the world for as long as you did, or maybe even both?
I think my advice is whittled down to just 2 words. Just do it. Just do it. Do it. I'm motivated most by the image of myself as an old man sitting on a rocking chair. I see 2 images. There's me that's sitting on a rocking chair. I will have taken up smoking by then. And I will have earned it.
Like, are we talking the pipe, you know?
Yeah, like a pipe. Like my Maltese granddad just had a pipe. It smelled amazing, actually. And looking back with a sense of pride of just having had a crack and having got my answer, I guess across as much of my bucket list as possible, versus the other image of me as an old, bitter dude looking back thinking, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't have a crack at this and this and that. So I think the first advice is just do it, just get involved, don't hesitate, stop dreaming about it. In terms of book writing a book is the difficulty is exactly the same as running marathons. The 1K mark in any run, even if it's a 42-kilometre marathon, the 1K mark is the halfway point. The hardest part's done, and that's just getting up, getting your shoes on, and getting going. And writing a book is the hardest part about writing a book is just getting yourself in the chair and saying, all right, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to water those plants, I'm not going to take the dog for a walk right now, I'm not going to worry about what's for dinner later. just fighting off all of those distractions that are just coming at you like a tennis ball machine. That's the hardest part. Just sit down and
Just to get in that
just
zone.
get in that
And
zone.
No outside distractions, just...
One of the hardest parts about writing is almost the sort of social deflection, where you are constantly saying no to things because you're fighting for time to write, especially if you're working full time. And there were times throughout writing the book where I was working full time, there were other times where I wasn't. I took chunks of time off work so I could just absolutely focus. But just do it, just get your answer, even if the book you write isn't great, of which I don't yet really know if mine is or not, but I'm dead proud of it. I can hold it in my hand and go, you know, that's definitely the best assignment I ever did or gave to myself. Get your answer. Just get your answer. Don't get grey wondering.
No regrets. Just
No regrets.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. That's
Within
bold.
reason.
I like, of course, yes, yeah. We're not advocating that people go out and do crazy
No,
things.
exactly.
But you know, dreams are merely dreams without action.
True.
Right.
Yes.
So you got to pursue them. Absolutely. So what do you hope readers will get from reading your book?
I think what I hope they'll get is definitely have a few laughs. Probably more than anything, and I don't know how to answer this and not sound terribly pretentious, but just to be inspired to take steps towards whatever it is they yearn for. It might not be going to India and having a motorbike. That just might sound ridiculous to 99% of people. But it might be something else. It might be, I don't know, starting a business. It might be going mountain climbing in Tasmania. Just whatever it is you're sort of daydreaming about. You know, that thing where they say if you won $10 million, what is it you would do for a living? And invariably, whatever it is you say, oh, you know, I'd invent the next flat screen TV, then that is actually what it is you should be doing right now as your job. So just sort of perhaps project people into what it is they yearn for and just have a crack at it and enjoy the highs, enjoy the bruises, and you'll have some great tales to tell. You know?
Absolutely.
I think that's the answer to that.
Okay. So last question, what's next? What's next after you hit the button and, you know, if this book takes off and it's an international bestseller, or, you know, if it's moderate success, what's next? Is there another book in store? Are you going to continue to write music? We really didn't touch on that too much in this interview, but you're a musician and you incorporate your songs and your, you know, your lyrical, some of the moments you had out on, I think it was a patio where you were staying, looking out at the Ganges River and this mountain or something in the distance, or mountains in Switzerland. I mean, there's just so much creative juices flowing throughout the book, and you actually list the lyrics to your songs, which adds to the appeal of the books. But, you know, what is next?
What I do know is that the creative process never stops, ever. Just when you think you've finished something, 10 other things have sort of flown into your head that need your attention, even while you're asleep. I've woken myself up from dreams that I know is a dream in which has music, and I'm trying to find it on the guitar, drooling all over myself. That doesn't really end. Whether I write another book or not, it depends. If I guess if I feel inspired to do it, there probably are definitely other tales in the wing that I could definitely write about, and I already have that old man concern of looking back, worrying that I won't write that and I'm going to regret that, so I should. There's very potentially other books on the horizon. The music thing doesn't end, you know, that's a major love-hate relationship, but I feel kind of most at peace for about 7 minutes after I finish a song. Until I think, I should really write a song soon. You know?
It's probably a treadmill that never turns off, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's that. I like, though, I remember seeing Viggo Mortensen, the actor who played Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, talking about, someone was almost sort of chastising him a little bit in an interview, just a bit abrasive with him in an interview. He was in Bangkok or something. You know, what is it that you are? Are you an actor or are you a photographer? Because he's a great photographer. And it's like, why do I have to sort of be one or the other? And he made this great analogy about how you watch a little kid drawing with the butcher's paper and the potatoes and the paints, and that little kid doesn't consider himself a drawer. He's just a little kid just expressing and creating, and that is a constant evolution. If not for the guitar, I started playing at 15, and that led on to me playing guitar and doing very tentatively doing backing vocals, terrified. And the vocal confidence kind of grew to me actually singing solo. And then I became a songwriter, and then after a songwriter I sort of became an author, which is just a great surprise to me. So I just think it's a constant roll on of what could be next. I sometimes think about stand-up comedy.
Well, I definitely think there's a place for you in the comedic world. That's for sure.
Thank you. At least, again, to go up there and get my answer. Get 12 tomatoes thrown in my head and say, all right, well, that's cool. I had a crack. I'm not going to lie there looking at the ceiling and get grey, thinking, I should have had a go at that. After that, I have no idea. I just keep being that little kid with the paints and the potatoes and keep squeezing the orange juice out of the orange to see what it is I'm capable of. I think that's the point of life, is to just figure out your capabilities and work through them.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. It's been a pleasure. David Kerrigan, everyone.